All right, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Colson with Junior Hockey Advisor. It's Sunday night. It's time to talk some hockey. I know we're competing. Thank goodness Tiger didn't make it to the end, and he was kind of out of it on Friday or Saturday, so we didn't have to worry about him. But we still have to worry about the Toronto game and against Columbus. So I think it was 1-0 the last I checked after the first. So we still got a little bit of competition. We might lose a few people to that, but I don't know. Maybe there's some Toronto fans that'll still pop on and watch this. We'll see. Hey, I see everybody coming in. Jenny from Kentucky. We've got Tom there. We've got Boston on board. Lots of people coming on board. Love to see that. Right off the bat, we've got good numbers, better than I thought for all the things we're competing with. It's sunny and 70. It was sunny and 79 here today. Some other hockey markets. Houghton, Michigan. Great day up there. 72. If you've ever been up to the Houghton area, you know that 72 is a great day right on Lake Superior. Colorado Springs was partly cloudy and 88. Home of Air Force Academy. How can you not love that? And Camrose, Alberta. If you haven't been to Camrose, it's right in between Calgary and Edmonton. Kind of a halfway point, not really halfway. Got a little slide off to the side there. But today was 66 and sunny. Once again, tough to get a little bit warmer than that. I think they just lost the ice off of the lakes there within the last 2 weeks up there. It gets a little bit cold there. That's when you get the square tires. Park the car overnight. The tire gets flat on the bottom. You wake up, and for the next 30, 40 minutes in the morning when you're driving, the tires are going ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk like square tires. So, okay, we got a lot of things to talk about. I don't even know where to start because there's so much to go on. A little bit about me. I've been doing this for 35 years. I'm an expert on the process of moving players. That's where I fit. That's what I do. I spend all week long either writing or actually talking to people. I do coaching calls for people that even have advisors or don't have advisors that want to know about what their process is. I do webinar series, so I'm talking to people that are doing the webinars with me, and the webinars are everything from how to hire an advisor to, goals and goal setting to, becoming an industry professional. So those are the things I do. But this show is strictly about you and what questions you have. So I compile questions throughout the week, and then I jump in. I try to answer as many questions as I can, and I try to format those questions in a way that might be a little bit entertaining, but at least it'll be some fun for us to go through. Your interaction is important, so when I see you on the board and I see you there and you have got questions, I try to get to as many of those as I can. The show's going great as far as our numbers. You know this. You know that our Facebook page, and if you've been a part of this and you're part of the family, you know our Facebook page and our Facebook group and my friend account and YouTube, they're all just growing like crazy. But it doesn't mean I don't need your help. This part of the free business still needs numbers. I need numbers and I need growth. So anything you can do to invite a friend. I had some people last week. We had a couple of our great members in our Facebook group, our discussion group, that actually literally I spent maybe 15 minutes approving people that they were inviting into the group this week. And it was a really, really nice feeling to know that people are getting value out of this and feel that it was important enough to invite a bunch of their teammates, friends, coaches, administrators across the board. So looking forward to tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to get into some things that might not be politically correct. So if you're a snowflake, it might be time to go watch that Toronto game, okay? If you're not, used to having a little fun, then you might not want to watch. I'm not going to say things that are pretty. Some of you might get a little slightly offended and think this is angled at you. It's not. This is angled at strictly trying to give you numbers and trying to give you ideas and thought process of how people think that are in the industry. So we've got, Kirkland, Quebec's on. Good to see you, Rob. Thanks for coming on. We got Gregory Esposito coming in from, once again, New Jersey. You guys got some names there. Last week it was a place next to Sing Sing. I don't even know how to say that, Gregory. So if you want to give me a little, phonetic spelling on that, I'd be glad to get your city on there. Hey, let's get rolling, though. We got a lot of things to cover. All right, the news, we had a lot of news last week, you know that. This week the news is pretty much just centered in the OHL. Although we don't get into the OHL much because the three major junior leagues in Canada are considered to be professional leagues as far as the NCAA is concerned. Now that could change. There's a lot of things going on with the NCAA and the fact that they're allowing players to start having revenue streams. We might see this major junior issue go away, where all college hockey all junior hockey is looked at as one. But right now we don't talk about it as much because remember, we're talking about the process to get you through junior hockey into Division I or Division III or ACHA college hockey. But the interesting thing about this is the OHL announced their start date, and I believe their start date got moved into December 1st, which is great. Now, there is a group of American players that are up there. There are Canadians and American players. Now, remember, there's not a lot of Americans that jump into the league. I think they had about 50 this last year. They've got about 22 that I'm concerned about because if the league gets pushed back into January, February, and they lose the league for the year, there could be some situations where those players just don't have anywhere to go. Now, don't feel too bad about them because remember, when you go to the OHL or you go to the WHL, and for an American to go to the Q is a little bit rare, but let's say you go to the Q2, the Quebec Major Junior League. If you're going to play in those leagues, there's a reason. There's one of three things. Mostly you go there because you're a true pro prospect and you feel that that's your best avenue to get to the pro level is through one of the major junior leagues. Now, we've seen those numbers of Americans diminish over the last 4 or 5 years. And the reason is because most of those players are now choosing to go to the National Development Program. And so we'll capture 40, 45 players in the National Development Program. And the way you can look at that is look at last year, there was a record-setting amount of first-round draft picks and overall NHL draft picks coming out of our National Development Program that superseded any individual team ever in the history of the NHL draft. So when you look at where the players are going, they're starting to migrate back into the USHL for years now. The USHL has the best NHL draft numbers of any individual league. Now you'll see what happens is the major junior leagues all combine their numbers together as part of their marketing plan, which is okay. That's fine. But just know that now they don't advertise their individual numbers like they used to. They advertise collectively, and they say, collectively, we have this many draft picks. And it's true, and it's still good hockey. There's nothing wrong with it. But for an American to go up there, they're either a pro prospect, maybe they don't have the academic acumen. In other words, they might be challenged in the classroom to the point where it would actually hinder their growth as a hockey player and as an athlete and their possible profession. So you might get some other reasons too, but it's rare to see. With that said, there's still about 22 players. Now, once again, the guys that are in the top of the league and are already NHL draft picks, Americans or Canadians, I'm not worried about them. But those 2000s, those 01s, and those 02s that are a little bit below that list, those are the guys you got to worry about a little bit and see. Now, if that league chooses to shut down, and even with a December start, you may, and from time to time you see this, you may see those players jump, not all of them, 1 or 2 or 3, jump into the USHL as a starting point, or as because with a trade, or they get released because they can't get across the border to even get into Canada to play. They might start in the USHL. Now, you say, well, the USHL is for college-bound players. It is, but if you look every year, there's always an example of 1, 2, 3, 5 players that have major junior experience. They do not have any eligibility for college, but they still play in the USHL. It does happen, and those players, where do they go afterwards? Well, they go to minor pro hockey. They might go to Europe. They're still eligible to play for the U.S. national programs, so they could do a lot of things. They just can't play NCAA hockey. So looking to see some new people coming on. Greg, I'll try to get to that in a second with the Toronto game going on. I understand we're all fighting that battle tonight, but I'm trying to stay away from that. So really the news, that's about it. But I want to get on to some fun stuff because we had some mail. Okay, the mail came in and I designed, let me get rid of the OHL thing. I put this together, actually sent it out a little bit. But after listening to some emails and some direct mails today, and it wasn't one person, it was probably close to a dozen people, 2000s, 03s, and 04s. That's the group I got this week, and that's why I put this together. doubt about it. People were panicking this week. Oh, just pulling out of their skin panicking. And it started with some 2000s. And then I talked to some 03 families and I talked to some 04 families. And, some of them were very lengthy conversations. But the biggest thing is that needle just went nuts this week on the panic side. And the panic side came in many, many different forms. The biggest, folks, if you're a 2000, you've got this whole season to actually commit. And the panic was, oh my gosh, the season's starting late. When am I going to commit? When am I going to commit? Well, let's put this in perspective a little bit. The last 3 months, the pandemic era here, there's been 60, 70, 99, and 2,000 players committing. Okay, so that means that the 99s, being in their last year of juniors, have been committing for the last 3 months. Okay, there's been no hockey. This is our summer now. There would normally be no hockey right now too. But if you go and look at the commitments, and once again, I've told you where to go to look at those commitments. You can go see those commitments at College Hockey Inc. If you go to collegehockeyinc.com, they'll give you a list. Go into the commitment section. There's a whole list, and that list is populated by the information that comes from Elite Prospects. Two of my favorite sites for gathering information, Elite Prospects, College Hockey Inc. Now, remember, if you're looking for root origin information, you're only going to get about a month of pure information on where players originated from, because as soon as they start their next season and their roster for the season, Elite Prospects changes what team they're on. That also populates into the College Hockey Inc. side, so you can't really tell where they originated from maybe after September of this year. Maybe later because of the pandemic, it might be October. But as soon as their new roster comes, so for example, if I'm a U16 player and I'm playing for the New Jersey Avalanche and I commit, but this next season I'm playing in the USHL, October comes around, USHL team gets put on my Elite Prospects. All of a sudden, my Elite Prospects populates the College Hockey Inc. page. It looks like I committed when I was playing for the USHL team then, when I actually committed. So there'll be a transition here. So any of that information you want, you got to look at it now. Now, the panic button went off. First of all, we got a clump. I talked about the 2000s, the 03s. Oh my gosh, no 03s are committing. You're right. There's a handful. Okay, they committed starting about a year ago. You started seeing a clump of 03s. They've been trickling a little bit here and there, but a few over the last few months. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's absolutely nothing wrong. If you're an 03 parent, nothing wrong at all. Got the calls from 04 parents. And this one, there was a couple of them that got a little lengthy. A couple of them just didn't want to hear what I was saying about this, because there's no panic in my voice on 04s right now. Okay, 2000s, yes, 6 months from now, 7 months from now, if you're not a D1 athlete, don't worry, because the D3 programs will be right behind the D1 programs. They do not fill D3 programs until the D1s have taken the players first. You don't get recruited very heavily unless you're a clear D3 player. If you're playing in the EHL, excuse me, if you're playing in the NA3HL, if you're playing in the USPHL Premier, maybe even the NCDC, and you're a pure D3 player, and it's been known for a while that's where you're headed, then you're going to get recruited earlier. You can get recruited into the spring and into the fall and the winter here. But if you're a borderline D1 player or a D1 player, hey, look, you're not going to get much love until as a D3 player until after the D1s are done. But if you're an 04, yes, there was a bunch of 04s, and they won't hit Elite Prospects probably until Monday or Tuesday. But you saw them on Instagram, you saw them on Twitter. All of a sudden, I want to. The little spiel at every D1 player. It looks exactly the same. They say the same thing. It's like getting an Emmy or an Oscar. They all have the same thing, and they point to the sky and all that stuff. Anyway, with that said, there is no panic. There is no panic across the board for 04s, for 03s, or for the 2000 group, and anything in between. Of course, there's no panic. Everything falls in place, and everything is as close to normal as possible for a pandemic. Okay, but the hockey world has pretty much been chugging along. Coaches are still doing their work. Coaches are still out there trying to plow through all this and do the work they've got to do. So with that said, just relax, folks. That panic, I loved my little video. Did you guys like that? That was pretty awesome. I actually took a bunch of different videos together. Got that eye, got the sound effect in the background and the flashing siren. I'm going to use that now. Every time somebody starts panicking, I'm going to use my little panic video for all you that are in the panic mode, okay? No panic, folks. Calm down, relax. You got plenty of time. But we're going to talk about some things you should be doing. So you're on that team. You're on that U6 team, and you're in 04 right now, and all of a sudden you look to your left, and your left wing, he gets a commitment. You look to your right, and your right wing gets a commitment, and you don't have your commitment yet. Yeah, it's a terrible feeling. For a kid, that could really, really be devastating for a few weeks. But it's natural. It's part of the process. And you don't know why those players went ahead of you, but especially if you're in 04 right now, there's a good chance that, and I had the statistics from a few years ago, and I'm not going to give you a statistic on this, but it's well over 20% of players at the D1 level that sign early, that commit early, don't end up at the school where they thought they were going to end up at. And it's just part of the process. They'll either get excited and knee-jerk grab the first school that they look at and not really know, and then they mature into it. They play a little juniors. They start talking to other players. They talk to some guys that are at the school, and they realize it's really a bad fit. And I can name players that are at Penn State right now, at Quinnipiac right now, at Michigan right now, that all went through the same process. And one of my kids actually did the same thing. His D1 commit originally was here, realized that was not the right fit, and then it changed. So it can happen to a lot of different people across the board. Hey, look, we got a lot of things to cover yet, and I want to make sure we get into all this. So I want to make sure we didn't shortchange anybody on that. But I thought that was pretty big news. I wanted to make sure that we just calm down, take a breath, and that we don't miss anything. So I know we got a question that came in on the board, and it's enough into the topic today where I'm going to try to get to that question a little bit later on. Right now, let's see what just come in. Why emotional regulation is so important to young players. Okay, so that's a good point, and I'm thinking what you're asking about. Why is I really don't know what you mean by that. Tell me what you mean by emotional regulation, because I don't want to go off on a tangent on something. Be a little more specific on that, Sandra, and I'll try to address that. But in the meantime, let's jump into some other things, because right now I want to get into a really important new part of the show. Okay, this is our new section. Oops, I'm giving away the farm there. I got to back up, and back up. This is our politically incorrect advice time. This is the time where I'm going to tell you things that other people aren't going to tell you. I'm going to tell you things that you probably never thought you'd hear from somebody that works in the industry, but they make sense. And once we look at them, I think you'll find out they make a lot of sense. So we'll have a little bit of fun with this. So the first thing right out of the bat is bad people make good hockey teams. So what do I mean about that? Bad people make good hockey teams. Look, there isn't a team that exists from the NHL to the OHL to NCAA hockey to anything in the USHL. There are going to be people on those teams where you look at it and say, I can't believe they get away with that. It could be curfews. It could be drinking. It could be not showing up on time. It could be doing things on the ice that are silly in your opinion, taking too much penalties, not passing the puck, being a puck hog. Whatever you consider bad, those people are going to be on teams, okay? Now, you can be even more specific and say there's people with bad attitudes that are great hockey players, and they make it all the way up to the NHL. And there's some very specific players that, there's some players that went from Toronto to Pittsburgh and then on from Pittsburgh recently that are American players that you've seen actually move through. Bad people play the game of hockey. When I mean bad people that, in your opinion, could be doing bad things, okay? First of all, bad things when you're a teenager or you're a young man, every kid's going to do something wrong, and different coaches handle those situations different. But it's not When I say bad people, they're going to be there. You got to learn to deal with it. You have to, as a parent, as a player, go, okay, and then you got to move on and say, that's a teammate. Somebody else has got to handle that problem. Okay, that's not my problem, and it's not mine. And it'll make more sense as we go along. But if you try to worry about the bad player, if you try to worry about the player that doesn't do what you think is the right things, and you think he's a bad kid, this starts at mites. Folks, it may even be worse at mites, okay? Of course, there's a little snot-nosed kid that does everything wrong, hits kids over the head with his sticks, trip kids, throws things, yes, he's going to be there. But you know what? A year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that little snotty-nosed kid could be a wonderful altar boy kid. You don't know. That's not for us as parents or players to decide. Let the coach handle the coaching decisions. As parents, focus on doing what you can do best to make your player better. And as a player, if I'm watching this as a player right now, I'm saying the same thing. Don't worry about the bad. Worry about the good. Let the coach do the things that coaches do in the coaching. But if you expect to run into utopia because you move from U14 to U16, utopia is not there. If you think it's going to change when you jump from 16 to 18 to juniors, no, there's still going to be problems there. And when you hear a coach, and this is the part that there's going to be coaches out there and there's going to be scouts out there that disagree with me, great players end up playing at the great level regardless of their attitude. And what I mean by that is you don't see an NHL first rounder that doesn't at least get a shot in the NHL if he's a first round draft pick material. Now, he might not stay, but he's made it all the way up through on talent because people, not every coach will, but coaches will take chances on kids that have issues. It happens all the time. Okay, now a coach may only take one of those kids. He might not take 10 of them, but there's going to be bad people playing the sport of hockey, and you got to just deal with it. You got to cope. You got to be able to move on and focus on what you do and what you have to do and not worry about anything else. So, yes, there are bad people playing this game. I had a parent this week tell me every reason in the world why his kid, well, you have a choice. If you don't like a kid because you think he does bad things, don't play on the team. Go find a different team. But you're not going to find the perfect team. There is no situation. Now, coaches do a good job with team building. They do a good job with discipline. And different teams do varying degrees of good jobs with that. I'm not saying every team is perfect. But it doesn't mean they don't have discipline issues. They don't have guys that won't get off the ice, the guys that won't pass. All those issues happen at all different levels. So when we get there, we'll and Sandra, I'll try to read that in a second. But I just want to make sure you got an idea of what bad people on good hockey teams means. Number 2, being a late bloomer is not a strategy. Nothing irritates me more when I see these USA Hockey people get online and get on Twitter and get on Facebook and all these different places and point out examples of late bloomers. I don't understand why people would think that that's a positive thing. Yeah, it's good for the individual, but why is it good for the masses? Because being a late bloomer doesn't work. Okay, if you're going to expect it, any day now. No, you know what works? Getting on the ice more. You know what works? Competing harder. Those things work. Expecting a late bloom doesn't work. In other words, you have to, if you're 10 or 12 years old right now and you're a family of a 10 or 12-year-old, awesome, work harder. If you're not a first-line player, work harder. Okay? If you want to be a first-line player and you can't crack it on the team, drop down a level, be a first-liner on that team, or stay on the team you're at and don't complain. Work harder. There is no situation where late blooming is going to be an effective strategy for you. It just doesn't work. And I'll give you an example of some of the most famous right now, most famous people that are late bloomers. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that there was just a show on ESPN, and it was dealing with the Chicago Bulls. And those Chicago Bulls, you might remember those 3 guys. They just did The Last Dance. Phenomenal docuseries. That's Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, and Scottie Pippen's on the right, Dennis Rodman's on the left, Michael Jordan's in the middle. Can you talk about a dominant team? Can you talk about 3 players that figured out that are completely different from each other and actually figured out how to do it? Right there. Right there. Now, all 3 of these players Michael Jordan got cut as a sophomore. He was a late bloomer. No. I'll explain why. Dennis Rodman didn't even play on the high school team. He's a late bloomer. No, that's not the truth. Okay? Scottie Pippen, he didn't start playing until his sophomore or junior year in college. All those things are true statements, but it wasn't because they were late bloomers. It was because this is what they look like. I don't know if you know this. This is something most people don't know. They all went to the same high school. And this is what they look like at high school graduation. Scottie Pippen was like 5'9" when he graduated. Jordan was in his mid-fives between his sophomore and junior year. He went up to 6'3", okay? Dennis Rodman grew like 17 inches. Okay, so this is rare footage now. This is rare footage. I'm going to show you, whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to show you, oh boy, some rare footage right now. This is a high school game with those three playing in it. It was a high school all-star game that these three played in. Told you we weren't going to be politically correct tonight, didn't I? I think I made it very clear we weren't going to be politically correct. My point is, all three of those guys grew almost a foot apiece. That's why they became great players. Jordan's skill set, yeah, he was a hard worker. He was a hard worker before, and he was a hard worker after he grew. But he still wouldn't have been a starter if he stayed at the same height. You'd have never heard the name Scottie Pippen if he didn't have a growth spurt. You would have never heard of Dennis Rodman if he was still 5'6" when he was in college. You can't be a number one rebounder. You cannot be a number one rebounder in the NBA if you're not close to 7 foot like he was, between 6'8" and 7 foot, whatever he was. Now, that's the point I'm making. There are so many things that late bloomers are. Mostly, late bloomers fall into two categories. Late bloomers fall into growth spurt category or change of sport and focus category. In other words, I was a baseball player and a hockey player, and I gave up baseball and focused on hockey. Now, that's a late bloomer because somebody that decided to get serious about it, maybe a little bit later in other ones, they can make a big jump in it. But somebody that's been serious about the sport for 14 or 15 years or been playing since they were 3 and they're 17 now, the odds of a late blooming situation popping out of that, don't count on it. So when I say it's not a strategy, that's what I mean. It's not a strategy. All right, let's get rolling on this list. I told you, tonight's not a politically correct night. They will not find you. Nothing irritates me more than walking into a rink and seeing that salty old coach sitting over on the side going, oh, just play high school, just play, for the local team. If you're good enough, they'll find you. If they're good enough, they'll find you. That's absolutely the dumbest thing I've ever heard in hockey. You have to market yourself. And I'm going to give you another example because I'm on a roll for examples tonight. Here's my example tonight. This is my boat. Well, it was my boat. I sold it last spring. Okay? I love this boat. This boat, I redid the whole boat. 320 horsepower. Ooh. Fast. 55 miles an hour on the water. Ooh, just adored this boat. About 4 years ago, went to the wife and I said, I know you don't like riding the boat. It's too fast for my son because he only knew one speed, and really you got to be able to temper it or know how to, control the boat with that kind of speed in the water. It's a little too fast for me even. So we decided we're going to sell this boat. The boat didn't sell for 4 years. Secretly, I didn't really want to sell the boat, so I kind of found ways to sell it but not sell it. So it sat in the driveway, and I told my wife, eventually somebody will drive by, see the boat. It's a beautiful boat, and they'll want it. Okay, 4 years. But then all of a sudden I decided, you know what, I got to get serious about this. It's good. The neighborhood association starting to say, do something with that boat. We're not using the boat as much as we used to. It's sitting in the driveway all the time. I decided to market the boat. I decided to put signs on the boat. I decided when I took the boat out to the marina, I'd have signs on it that said for sale. I put it on eBay. I put it on Craigslist. I went to boats.com, whatever, all these different places. And within 48 hours, I sold the boat because I marketed the boat. And if you think that if you're just going to play and they're going to find you, there's nobody there that's looking for you. I always ask the question, who is they? Okay, do you think the USHL is looking at anything but the highest of high levels for players? Okay, they will find you if you're on a top HPHL team. They will find you if you're playing Tier 1 Elite for one of the big boys or one of the independents. They will find you if you're playing in the Beast League. They're not searching into Tier 2 leagues. They're not searching into house leagues. It just doesn't happen. So when I say they will find you or they won't find you, that's because nobody's looking for you unless you market yourself. You can even be, now here's a perfect example. You can be on a Tier 1 Elite team. You can be the 5th best player on that team. All of a sudden, 4 college coaches walk in. 4 college coaches are taking notes on the whole game. And you and your parents after the game, or even during the game, you're excited. You see all these top college coaches walking in. You know they're watching your team, and you know that they're taking notes on your team. You're the 5th best player. You think you're going to get notes written on you. 4 players get written up, and it's the top 4 players. And not because they're the top 4 players. It's because your coach's job is to knock off 1 player before he worries about 2. So your youth coach, your 16, 18 coach on that Tier 1 Elite team is probably trying to get the first 2 or 3 guys out of the way. So he's suggesting that those college coaches look at the guys that are uncommitted and who starts from the top down. Okay? But those other 4 players all reached out to those schools with emails and with texts and with phone calls. They talked to those coaches at showcases. They did everything they could to make sure their name was out there. They branded themselves, they marketed themselves, and they pushed themselves. So when those coaches walked in the door, they've already got a list. And being a former college coach and a former junior coach, I got 2 columns. I got the columns of kids that I want to watch from whatever, from our scouting staff, wherever. Then I got the kids that reached out to us on the list too. Now, I might not watch a lot of the shifts of the kids that reached out to us because I might go, yeah, he reached out to us, but I'm going to at least give him a look because he reached out to us. And then I'm going to work down what the college said and what our scout said. I'm going to work through that list. There's a chance that you're the 5th best player, 6th best player, 7th best player on the team. You could have the best game and never have eyes on you, and partially that's your fault. Not because you did something wrong on the ice, it's because you're not marketing yourself. You can't wait for somebody to find you. You can't wait for that coach to come to you. You have to make sure that you put yourself in a spot where you know when that coach walks in the door, he's going to watch you. It's up to you, nobody else. That's why emails, texts, video, clips on YouTube, all those things are essential, absolutely essential if you're going to get this done right. It doesn't matter what level you want to make. I'm starting off saying D1 and with a Tier 1 Elite, but you could move that down to D3 hockey, and it doesn't change a thing. You could be playing in the EHL. You could be looking to try to play for one of the best, NESCAC schools in the Boston area, and that coach walks in the door. You want to make sure he knows who you are ahead of time. And it is not the responsibility of your coach. It's good that your coach works. And believe me, most coaches at that level, youth coaches at that level, are trying to do everything to get players put into place. But I can't start at number 5 on my list until I get 1, 2, and 3, and 4 done. So yes, 1 gets out of the way and he commits, it makes it easier. So getting back to what we said earlier about the panic, there's nothing better right now if you are on that. I'm using Avalanche, but it could be Honey Bake, it could be different teams. If I'm a 16 and I see my left wing and my right wing commit, that's awesome. Because now when a college coach comes, there's more eyes on me because those guys are out of the picture now. Bingo, done. That means I get a chance to get more eyes on me. Remember, there's 20 kids on your roster. You don't know what that college coach is watching, and he cannot watch 20 kids. You, that number 5 player, could have the best shift, end-to-end rush, do everything to get through the D, split 2D, put it upstairs, great goal. But he might be watching that defenseman behind the play because he was the first kid he was coming to watch to see how that kid stayed in the play, never watched the puck, never seen what you did because he had his eyes somewhere else on the ice. The only way those eyes change is if you're doing everything you can to change those. Soapbox. Told you, tonight wasn't going to be a pretty night. Tonight wasn't going to be a nice night. I'm ranting, politically incorrect, feeling a little ornery tonight. you're going to see a little bit of that. So let's get back to my list. Oop, why are you not listing for me your list? Oh, this is the best one. This one is the one that is going to irritate people when they first read it. Selfish players are the best players. Did I just say that? Selfish players are the best players. Give me a team, give me 20 selfish players, and I'll win championships. Give me 20 selfish players, and I'll go somewhere with a team. What do I mean by that? A selfish player gets in that locker room and is focused because he's worried about everything he needs to worry about. He got sleep the night before because he's selfish. He ate the right meal because he's selfish. He's on time because he's selfish. If he's late, he knows he's got all kinds of distractions. He's got to deal with that coach. He's got to deal with things if he doesn't show up on time. Okay? He doesn't get worried about little things and little distractions because he's selfish. A selfish player is the best player you can have. If you don't believe it, you don't think Wayne Gretzky was selfish or Mark Messier, look at some of the great players around right now. You know how you can tell they're selfish? Watch what happens when they get off the ice. Are their eyes going everywhere? Are they jumping around? Are they chatting? Are they smiling? Are they trying to see where their girlfriend's at in the crowd? Are they winking at their mom saying, hey, Mom, how are you doing over there? No. They get off the ice, their head drops, they look up, they take a drink of water, they might watch the play a little bit to stay involved in the game, but they're focused. Selfish players are great. Now, I'm not, I'm going to get into this. Many of you have heard my chocolate cake story, but I'm going to throw it out there again. Abbreviated, going to keep it shorter. Toronto game's on. I get it. You don't want to be stuck with this old guy talking to you all night long. But the chocolate cake story goes something like this. Team's getting ready to play. They get done with their little warm-ups. They're up running back and forth, jump rope and skipping. They all get back in the locker room. They're getting dressed. 10 minutes before the game, most of them are dressed. Into the locker room walks fat little Johnny. Remember I told you tonight was not a politically correct night. Fat little Johnny's got the biggest smile on the face. Now, this is a true story. Names have not been changed. I'm not going to give you last names, but names have not been changed in this story to protect the innocent. This is a reality. This actually happened. My team. Fat little Johnny walks in the locker room and he's excited. What does he have in his hand? He's got a piece of chocolate cake. One of his friends on the other rink, little brother, was having a birthday party, and Johnny just happened to be walking by after warm-ups, popped his head in and said, hey. And they said, Johnny, come on in, get a piece of cake. And he went, sure. Johnny brings that cake back in the locker room. So now there's all kinds of dynamics. And anybody you want to talk about team dynamics, you see it all in this situation. Because he's still in his graze from his warm-ups, from his little runs and jump ropes. Wasn't very good at that because, once again, it's fat little Johnny. Gets in the locker room. His two line mates come over. They both sit down next to him, and they're all happy, and they're looking at it like, hey, Johnny, give me a piece too. Well, the assistant captain and the other assistant captain are sitting in the other two corners. They got the leadership complex thing going on. They both bolt up like, the sergeant at arms of the locker room, and they run over, and they're going to instill their discipline. They're yelling at players, sit down, you got to get dressed, got to get focused, everything's going on. Now you got the assistant captains and their following are going one direction. You got Johnny sitting in the middle just looking at that cake, can't wait to touch it, can't wait to jump in, got his little plastic fork and he's ready to go. His two line mates are right there with him, fourth line players, right there with him. They want to jump into that cake too. You got a couple people yelling at him from across the room. Coach walks in. First thing he does is go, Captain, what the heck is going on in here? And you know what his captain did? Nothing. Because his captain was sitting there. My captain was sitting there. I didn't walk in. The assistant coach actually walked in. The captain was sitting there focused. He looked up at the coach and he goes, Coach, if I get involved with this, the whole team is distracted before the game. I didn't think you wanted that. And the captain looked right back down and stayed focused. Okay, that's a selfish player, yes. But that's a player that learned over time he can't get distracted by the music of this guy. He can't get distracted by the soda can of this guy. He can't get distracted by this guy, trying to make all of his friends laughing over here. What he's got to do is come in the locker room and focus on himself. And we use that, and I used that story for 20 straight years after it happened. and actually literally taught it to every single team, junior, college, U8 team that I coached since then, because it was so powerful. Walk in, focus on yourself. If the ceiling's falling in on one side of the locker room and it's not on you, you stay focused. That's a selfish player. So when I say selfish, I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean this in an extremely, extremely positive way. If you walk in and that's the only thing you're worried about is what you've got to do to get ready, then you're a hockey player. Now you're moving somewhere. Some good things can happen for you. Last one. Set your own rules. Don't worry about the team rules. You set your rules. Now, once again, holy smokes, this guy's nuts. Now he's telling us don't worry about the team rules. Just go in and set your own rules. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to give you the 3 rules. Go get your pen. Go get your pen. Go get your paper real quick. I'll wait. I'm not going to wait. I'm too fired up. But I'm going to tell you right now, here's the 3 rules. Be on time. Be coachable. And respect every single aspect of that team and the rink and the people around you. Because if you're on time, you have no issues with the team rules. Those 3 rules, on time, respectful, and coachable, means that you're bought into everything that could possibly be put in paper. When I first started this, I was a road warrior that carried a binder that started out with a couple pages of rules. By the time I was in about my 5th or 6th season, I had a 3-ring binder of team rules that was probably 30 pages long. I'm married to a lawyer, too. It didn't help. She didn't help me at all on that. Just kept adding, oh, there's a bylaw clause about that. No. 3 rules. Be on time, be respectful, and be coachable. If you do that, along with being selfish, you're golden. Whatever the team rules are, you're going to abide by them because you're on there on time and you're listening to the coach. Is there any better way to be than setting your rules and setting your standards higher than the rest of the team? If you're selfish and you have your own rules, now you're in a spot where you absolutely are setting yourself up for success to be recruited and to find those things. Now you can tie into the marketing side of this and you can tie into strategy and branding yourself. All those things are things I do in webinars. That's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about setting yourself up to have the best possible successful season with a team, regardless of the bad people, regardless of the coach. You can have the best coach or the worst coach. Put yourself in a spot to be successful, and you do that by being a selfish player that puts the time into setting his rules first before he worries about any team rules, because your rules can last your whole hockey career. Team rules will change every single season. Hell, there's coaches that will change their own rules or don't abide by their own rules. So if you've got rules that are tougher than the coaches, you're going to be set. You're going to be putting yourself in a very positive situation. What do you think about that? Too far tonight? Too politically correct or incorrect? So I hope you enjoyed that. And, the score is still 1-0. Still a tight game. I'm surprised we got a big of audience. We were up in the 50s for a while. Remember, this I never can figure this out. We get only 30, 40, 50 people at a time live. Now, over the course of the whole hour, there's a couple hundred people. Then we put this on replay, and it goes nuts. It goes through the roof on the numbers. This week wasn't as great because the NHL's been back, and we're fighting that. I don't have the pandemic audience locked the way I used to, so my market share is going back to the NHL. Hey, listen, I want to get to the one question that came in. I just got to find it again. Let's see if I can scroll back and put that together that came in earlier. So Tom asked a question. So same time, Mark, yes, it is same time every week. We do the show every Sunday night at 9 o'clock. Tom's question was, I have a question for you. Do you recommend a particular website or listing for your child's hockey accomplishments and academic as well? And what do you recommend gets posted or not posted? Okay, so that's a little bit of a loaded question. And the reason it's a loaded question is it depends. Okay, if you're at a club level of play, ACHA level of play, some of these online sites that collect your information and build a portfolio for you are looked at. Some ACHA coaches will, pull that. Virtually no junior coach is using those sites. Either they're using a backdoor site that we've talked about before, and it's in a lot of my videos. There's a whole, from the NHL all the way down to junior hockey. There is a professional site that's used, and that site is tied into everything, and it allows the coaches to pull scouting reports. It allows a coach and a general manager to know where all the scouts are at all times, what players they're covering, who's got coverage in every area. That's the first thing that's happening. So that information is gleaned from scouting reports from all different sources, and it also is tied into things like Elite Prospects. Elite Prospects is absolutely your best source to make sure your information's on, and you don't really have much control. You do now because it's changed. I don't know much. In the last month, they've just added this new more recruiting side of it where you could add your own information and you can put information up. But Elite Prospects is used by virtually everybody in the industry because it's accurate, it's thorough, and if you're playing anywhere, that information will populate. Your league or your team will populate that for you. You don't have to put the quote-unquote information in, except for the new paid version, which, once again, I don't know much about the new paid version. I was hesitant to see the paid site come out because they had a pure information side. I didn't want it to get subjective with parents or players starting to muddy the waters. So Elite Prospects is really where you start if you're playing at the higher level. If you're playing at the mid-level or lower level, you're playing Tier 2, then you're in a situation where you want to use one of those other sites. It's probably not going to hurt you, but you're not going to get the North American Hockey League. You're not going to get the USHL or the CJHL teams looking at those one-off sites. Most of them, now I'm not going to call out names on this, most of them are what are called vanity sites. And if they're collecting your information and ask you for information on your player, or say, we've got a big feature coming out on your player, that's a well-known tactic in this industry. We're going to write a big story on your player, and you're like, wow, they're going to interview my player. He's going to be in this publication. Then they ask you to subscribe, for whatever the amount of money is, and it can be big money. Some of these sites charge you $150 to subscribe, or they charge you $30 a month or something. And their hope is that you keep your subscription from age 10 when they wrote the article, or age 12 when they wrote the article, all the way through to when you're actually done with hockey, or maybe you forget forever and you just keep doing it. So that's the biggest part of that is to make sure you understand that these the vanity sites are the ones you got to worry about, and you'll figure that out real quick. Vanity sites are there's numerous ones of them, and if they ask you to subscribe after they interviewed, in other words, they write the article, they give you the first 2 or 3 lines of the article and say, here's the article we wrote on your son. And then you pull up the site and there's like 80 kids that they wrote articles on, and they want you to subscribe. Well, there's 80 other kids that got articles written on them that day or that week too. So just be cognizant of that. But what you can do, and this is something that's become much more popular with players, with parents, and with coaches, and with advisors lately, is putting together a 90-second at tops. You don't have to go nuts with this. Enhancement video where you actually are showing, a back check, a pass, a goal. Don't load it up with, the 3 goals he had in a shootout in a scrimmage. What you want to do is show a little bit of each part of your game. Some people put it to music. Some people put it with a little bit of graphs, an arrow pointing at their player. That could be fine. That's not going to hurt you. But, you just want to put yourself in a spot where you can do that on YouTube, Vimeo, YouTube. Those things are perfectly okay. I don't really want to get into actual names of specific websites. Somebody just threw up one about a specific website. I don't want to jump in on specific names on that. And the only reason I use the one reason I want to bring this up with that I do throw out a couple things is Elite Prospects has been considered the industry standard. Everybody can get information on there, and you don't have access to alter the information. So when I use that one, it's not because I'm plugging them or that I've got an endorsement by them. By the way, Elite Prospects, I talk about you a lot. So if you do want to endorse me, I would, that's an unbiased source of my opinion that fit perfectly in with what I do. But the reason why I don't want to mention those other names is I don't want to get on the bad side of any vanity sites. They do what they do. It's up to me to explain to people that they're there. It's up to me. I feel compelled to make sure to tell you about the hiccups in the road. But you know what? There are people out there that like to see the articles. There are people out there that think that'll actually help their kid, give him more confidence, and actually help him with his career. Maybe, maybe not. That's not for me to say, but I can say they're not places where coaches are looking. The coaches aren't going through vanity sites. So let's get back down. I saw that Sandra, hopefully I can look at this real quick and see what we changed and see if, okay, I go back and watch the beginning. I came in late. Okay, great. Just give me some love back there. Hopefully I answered the question across the board. With COVID, will fish bowls become the norm? I really can't tell that. I don't know. We're all going in the same direction with this. I don't understand why hockey is considered, an intimate sport in some markets, and in some markets it's not for me to understand. I think it'd be really funny, though, if we just started playing back outdoors again in some of these areas that can't get the sport sanctioned indoors. If we slap up 4 or 5 outdoor rinks in some of these markets and just played all of our games outdoors, I think that'd be kind of fun, and we'd keep things rolling on that side. So I hope I answered that question for you, Tom. I didn't see if you came back with anything. Let me see if we got any other questions coming in. Going through it. New Brunswick's in the house. Thank you for popping in. Enjoy that. Mark, thank you. Philadelphia, thank you. Okay, I don't see any new questions coming in right now. If not, that's the case. I think we've covered quite a bit tonight. We've been going for almost an hour. We've had a lot of it going on. Don't forget, folks, if you got a friend, invite them. We're trying to get the Facebook group before the month of August is over up to 5,000 on the Facebook page side, which is right now somewhere between 36 on the likes and follows. So we really could use your help there. Remember, this part of my job is what I do at no compensation. I just put this out there to try to help feed people. And I've already explained what I do, but I am going to put a shameless plug in. I've got to do it. This is a shameless plug for a free product. This is the free guide for hockey players. It is how to hire a family advisor. And there is no clickbait at the end. There is no, if you sign up for this, you want to upgrade and spend $80 with me. No, this is a product that stands on its own. We did a couple hundred of these last week that went out. I'd love to see a couple hundred more of these go out this week. Now, you will give up your email address, and I cannot promise you that I won't reach out to you sometime in the future and ask you about some of my other webinars or some of my other products. Deal with it. That comes with the territory. But I'm not asking you for anything here. That's a standalone document. It works extremely well. It breaks down how to set yourself up to have for success. All the questions you need from a legal perspective, all the questions you need to ask to know exactly what you're getting from an advisor so that you walk out of that relationship with a win-win situation. Advisors winning because they're doing it. Communication's great. And all the pitfalls that I've seen over the years, every single pitfall is addressed there. Now, do I have other webinars on family advisors? Of course I do. But start here. Get the free advice. Take this document, run with it. A lot of you asked for it. You asked for having a template on how to hire an advisor. Start with this. If you're an advisor out there, why aren't you using this with your clients? This is a perfect document for you to use for your clients. I'd be printing these off and saying, hey, look, my buddy Jeff over at Junior Hockey Advisor set this up. This is a great way for you to keep track of how we're starting our relationship. Eat off of this, guys. This is a good way for you to start getting more business. Add a little professionalism on me, free. Take advantage of it. Okay, unless we got other questions. Should we prepare for a late start for the season? Yeah, across the board. Right now, I think everybody's got a late season going on. I think that's, okay, recommend junior hockey camps. Okay, last question of the night is recommend junior hockey camps. No, I don't recommend junior hockey camps. What I recommend is if you're at that level, that you do something that's got more of a showcase benefit to it. There's enough programs out there. Now, Doesn't mean there's not a good junior level camp. But if you're at the junior level age, in most cities, what you find is there's junior level skates that are built in with some development company. In other words, for example, my kids locally, well, before I got out of the business, or after I got out of the business, after I sold the junior teams and sold the development company, we used one of the local competitors. Both of my kids skated in the morning, then they lifted and skated again with a group of like-minded kids. These are 16, 18 kids, junior kids, some college kids, and they built a group around the level of skill. So really locally in most markets, you don't have to go out and find a camp. You can build a camp that's customized just for those players. Now, with that said, at the junior level age, you need to get in good skates. A week-long camp at the junior age is not going to change your skill level. It's going to get you in shape. It might get your timing and your wind back, but you're not going to change your level of skill in 1 week at a camp, period. Little kids pick up skill, trust issues, and they take risk and rewards, and they can do some things on the ice. And there's a whole philosophy and there's a whole psychology behind that on why camps work for younger kids. 15, 16, 17 years old, you're not going to change the world in a week. You're going to get your wind or you're going to get your timing. And my suggestion is you showcase events for that. Now, some are hybrid. Some events are showcase events with a practice or two at the beginning, and they're integrated in. But you look for the ones that have got a track record of lots of junior and college coaches on the ice at all times. There's some phenomenal events. There's some in Tennessee, Colorado, Boston, Detroit. There are great markets out there that have these events, these showcases that promise you right in their advertisement, and most of them are pretty true about this, are pretty honest about this, that they actually have people show up that they say show up on the sheets. You want to be able to start building those relationships. You want to be able to reach out and have your son with an assistant coach from a team in the NAHL, with an assistant coach from a team that's a Division I school or a Division III school. And remember, we're a closed network. We're very, very tight as a hockey industry, meaning if you're in the business, you're only one step away from knowing everybody, okay? It's just the way it is. Maybe 2 steps. It's not like the Kevin Bacon game where it's 3 or 4 steps. This is literally, if I want to talk to the coach of this program, there is definitely, if I'm already in the industry, only one person I need to find that will connect me with that guy. So if you are a kid, a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, and you're skating with the assistant coach at Adrian, which is a D3 school in Michigan, that guy, I guarantee you, knows the Boston College coach or the BU coach, or he knows the coach of a prep school. He knows the coach of Michigan Tech. There's so much interconnection there. That's why the other part of this is you never want to burn bridges with a D3 coach if you're a D1 guy. You never want to burn bridges with a D1 guy if you think you're only a D3 player, because you don't know where they're going to mix up and end up next year. They could literally change in a night, overnight, and end up in programs that you weren't expecting. So I hope that helps a little bit on camps, showcases. Take advantage of that. The other thing to take advantage of, and this is the one where you gotta dig a little bit to find these because they're not up there. If you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and you're in a competitive situation, meaning you're playing at least low-level Tier 1, reach out to the colleges and find out which colleges are doing showcase skates. A lot of colleges now, both for revenue and for recruiting, will run a week-long camp. And the camp will have a practice function in it, which is usually minimal, and they'll have multiple games in a showcase style with a championship game at the end. All-star games sometimes too. Now, you find those in some of the schools in Michigan. You find them at Niagara runs one here in Western New York. Air Force runs one. Harvard runs one. They're all over the place, but there's no list of these. You've got to actually do some homework and find out who's doing these camps, and you've got to apply. Now, you might go to their website. Sometimes they're on their website. Sometimes they're not, because they don't want everybody there. Even though NCAA rules say they have to let anybody in the door, they try to keep it selective, and they try not to advertise these as much as possible so they can control the narrative a little bit. Technically, every college out there, if they run one of these camps, it's got to be open to any kid that can put skates on his feet. But the less they market it, and they say, "Oh, look, we got this camp," and they send you the email. The email says open to anybody, but they only send it to you. Okay, you have to ask for it. You got to do a little homework. So those camps are phenomenal because you build intimate relationships with the assistant coaches and coaches of a college program, and you get ahead of the game. You learn about the process. You see the school. Good things can happen there. So that kind of jumped on the junior camps. I'd love to get into some other things. The question that Ken came in is, where can I find those showcases? Ken, I've got some videos from last fall up on YouTube. You might want to check there under my showcase videos if they're still up. The other part of this is I would suggest starting with Google and looking for showcases. I don't want to promote one guy over another. I can tell you that I'd look at the Tennessee showcases, the Colorado showcases, Denver area showcases, the Detroit area showcases, Boston area showcases. Those are usually good. And I would throw that question up, Ken, on our Facebook discussion page, because many of those people are on our Facebook discussion page. I'm sorry, folks. You wouldn't believe how many people are on there that are in the business, and how many of them are substantially in the business. And I won't call anybody out. I mean, what do they call that? Doxing or outing, whatever they call it when you pull somebody out in the media. I'm not going to do that. They're there because they want to gather information. They want to get a pulse. They want to see what people are thinking and talking about. And I love the fact that they're part of our discussion group. But you've got to ask those questions. Let them jump back in and answer it, or they'll have a surrogate answer the question for you too. So hopefully that answers that a little bit. Main camps, we just did a show on. I'll look at this. I don't know if I'm going to answer it, Lenny. I might put this off the next week, but I'll read your question and see if I can get it in quickly. Thoughts on main camps that have no spots available? Is that common now with some of the leagues not playing and prep school classes online? Main camps vary from team to team and league to league. There's no way in the world I can answer that for you as far as, once again, throw that up on the Facebook discussion page, Lenny, and we can get a discussion going that'll get a little bit more accurate than that. Folks, I got to really run. We went over our hour. Thank you so much for everybody that stayed with us. It was great tonight. Told you it wasn't going to be politically correct. I told you we're going to talk about some things that would not be things that were politically correct. I hope you enjoyed it. Share this video. If you get a chance to jump on YouTube, make sure you do the subscribe thing. All that, you know all that stuff. You guys hear this all the time. But I really need help on growing the audience. And the only way I can do it is if you can give me a hand on that. And I sure would appreciate it. Besides that, have a great Sunday night. If you're cheering for Toronto, good luck. If you're cheering for Columbus, good luck. I'll stay out of that mix and let that be decided by somebody else. Have a great night, everybody.